I'm most grateful for my family, and I'd have to say my neighbors as well. Sometimes I would eat two dinners. I'd eat at my house and then like get a text from my neighbor, be like, "Want to come over for dinner?" I'm like, "All right, I'm going over to the Manuals." My dad's like, "For second dinner?" I'm like, "Maybe." So yeah, they pretty much are just my second family. I definitely want that same thing for my kids. I've definitely actively thought about it. I don't know. It's just the whole like it takes a village, and I had a really great village. They made growing up a blast, and I love them.
I feel like when you ask like Americans who's your family, they go to like their immediate family. And I think for me, it's literally every single person in my family just because I come from an extremely close-knit family. And we're that typical like Latin American family that's like really, really huge. All my aunts, all my uncles, cousins, etc. They're all like very close and dear to my heart. But obviously, I do have an immediate family, and that's my parents and my brother. And I consider my grandparents part of my immediate family as well. So with my parents, it's interesting because they divorced when I was young, and but they both pretty much remained like super active in my life and like just super involved. So it was kind of interesting because in some ways, it never felt like a divorce. Like we physically didn't live together anymore, but like my dad was always there when I needed him. My relationship with my dad is pretty close. I can talk to him about a lot of things, but there's always like certain topics that like are just they'd be awkward to talk about, and a lot of those topics are like gendered topics. Like he knows the basics of my relationship, but he doesn't know like the cutesy little like gushy things that my mom hears because like he just wouldn't. I don't know. It's just never conversations that we've had, and I think in part it's because society in Honduras is very gendered. We like have this thing called machismo, which is like patriarchy, but like times 1,000, and it sucks. And I think that makes like very defined roles, even like in a relationship between a father and a daughter. You just don't touch certain topics, and it kind of sucks, but just kind of like the way things are. For example, like I remember the first time that I got my period, I was with my dad, and he freaked out, but he did okay, but he freaked. But I remember him being like, "Oh, did you have to talk with your mom already?" And I was like, I had, but I lied, and I was like, "No, Dad, I didn't," because I wanted him to like say something, and he was like, "Okay, when I drop you off, you should tell her." So like little things like that. It's like there's always been like this distance, and I think in part it's probably just because that's just how our society is, and like he grew up with those like very like gendered roles, and like it's hard to change that, and it's hard to change like a whole culture and the way that a whole culture sees what being a father and what being a mother means. And sometimes I wish that there were just topics that I could just be like, "Hey Dad, like I'm gonna talk to you about this like feelings, like super girly things, and like you should be fine with it." But I don't know. I've never tried. I've tried sometimes and like it doesn't go well. He'll just be like, "Okay, yeah, tell your mom." And so it gets a little frustrating, but I know that it's not because he means badly. It's just that it's so ingrained. That's just kind of how he sees being a father, I think.
I have a really big family. My parents went to high school at my high school, and so did some of their siblings. My cousins live across the street from me. My grandpa lives down the block, and my grandma used to live down the block on the other side before she passed. We're very close. I have no idea, 30 cousins, not 40, but not 30. And I see them a lot, and I'm close to all of them. It sort of teaches you how to like be part of a big group and like not know your place, but really just like know how to do the right thing so that it all works, which is a blessing and a curse. I'm used to like sitting on the ground because I don't have a seat and like eating food like in unconventional ways and kind of like being silent. Yeah, It's absolutely hard to be a part of a big family. You sometimes have to put your own interests on the back burner, especially because I'm on the younger side of all the people. My grandmother was a female alderwoman in my town, and like civic engagement meant everything to her, and voting, and like anytime she would meet any part of the family, like a new boyfriend or a girlfriend or something, she would say like, just remember to vote. So now we have a bench in our town with my grandmother and my grandfather's name, where we used to do a 5K for them that said, remember to vote, or something along those lines, and that is so wonderful. Right before she passed, she like sent me a text saying, I heard you did grassroots campaigning for a mayoral candidate, and I'm so proud of you. And she was really sick, and she didn't text very often, and that was so important. And they flied the flags at half-mast in my town when she died. So, pretty wonderful.
So my mom, like, she grew up in an abusive household, so her mom is like, she was emotionally and physically abusive. And I think my mom really like actively tried to not be like that. But I think at the end of the day, like, she has like that trauma that just like can't, and she never worked through it. She never like saw anybody, and like it just kind of festered. And she was better than her mom in a lot of ways, but I think like that definitely like passed down to me and my brother and sister. Just like physical abuse when somebody gets mad, or like if you mess up. I have a really distinct memory of being in 8th grade. It was April, and I was making rice, and I put the pot down on the, we have a linoleum, my kitchen's like straight out of the 70s, we have like a linoleum countertop, and so the pot like burned through the linoleum countertop, and my mom like flipped, absolutely flipped. So she told me to get a razor to like scrape off the burnt part, but I didn't know what she meant, so I went and got like a razor you shave with, but she meant like one of those like just like cut like blades that you use to like clean off like from a stove or something. And just like that just like set her off. My dad usually would just like be downstairs in the office when most of this was happening, because he just like needed to like avoid a lot of it. But then he like heard thuds, so then he called 911, and then the police came, and then I had to like fill out like a statement and stuff. But I think what I would change about the way I was raised wasn't the abuse itself, but was the fact that I kind of resent my dad for not being there for me more. Yeah, because like I'm who I am because of it, you know, and like I feel like I'm a stronger person because of it, and I'm learning a lot, and I learn a lot about myself every day because of it. The relationship that my siblings and I have is just so, it's interesting to see how each sort of the abuse affected each one of us, because I am a very emotional person, and I very much want to unpack all my feelings all the time, and my brother kind of completely shuts them out. And I think I think he was the most affected by it, I think, because I think he just kind of shuts down emotionally and like makes light of the whole situation. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my brother to like, I don't know how healthy it is, but just like laughing at the situation, like laughing at the bad parts, laughing at how ridiculous my mother can be, and also just like we send each other memes all the time about like passive aggressive Jewish moms. And my sister has disabilities, so she can't really emotionally like handle something and doesn't really realize the weight of it all sometimes. My relationship with my mother now, how great my relationship with her is and how healthy it is now, does not invalidate the pain and like the hurt that happened and how I came back from that and how it affected me and how it was still like, it still was bad, and like that's okay. When people try and be like, oh yes, I understand because XYZ happened to me, or like I relate in some way, which I think can be good in some situations, but sometimes it's nice for people to just be like, I hear you and I see you, and you deserve to feel that way.
Being from a family like of really like loud women has definitely shown me that like honestly like women can just like do anything. I think like What's interesting about like my family situation is that like I've seen more of like the hardships of women, but like now, like at the age that I am, I'm able to like look back. I've definitely have never had to like come to a realization that like women are like just as strong as men, or like that there's like there should be like total equality there with like the gender spectrum. But I think that as a woman of color, it's been like kind of weird for me to come to Tufts and like put my family like into like the Tufts sphere. I don't know, I feel like a lot of my friends are like very proud of like their lineage and like where they come from. I'm not like ashamed of where I come from, but I've never really like felt the need to like project it as like a big part of my identity. As I've been at Tufts, I've like definitely been like very, very proud to like be my mother's daughter, which is like an interesting thing to like realize about myself. I've just like gotten to a point where I like see more similarities between us than differences now, which like has been like really nice for me just because I'm like, oh, like that's my mom. My dad passed away when I was in like middle school, and then my grandfather passed away the same year, so also like 6 to 7 years ago. And so now like my immediate family is me, my mom, my grandma, and then like a couple aunts, and then like one sole uncle who like lives kind of far away. My family very much believes in like it takes a village in that theory. So like I was raised by like everyone in my family as much as like my two parents. So I think that like as I move forward in the world, like I think like from like losing my dad and my grandfather in the same year, I like saw a lot of like the weakness that people in my family can hold, and not that it's like all a bad thing. I've just like seen them kind of like come apart a little bit, and like seeing that just like really, really hurt. And so I think like now, like ever since that time, like moving forward, I've most definitely been someone who's like, okay, everything I do is to like not necessarily make my family proud of me, but to make like everyone else in the world be like, she's part of that family. Like that's a family that is like triumphed and like could literally like have like statues somewhere or something. Like I'm very much just like, this is like a family that like sticks together, and like through everything, like as individuals, they're like fucking awesome, but like when they like come together, they're also just like an incredibly cohesive unit.
I'm more like my mother every day. I am. I feel her stir inside me when I lose my way. I'm more like my mother every day. I am. I feel her arms around me and I long to stay. I'm more like my father every day. I am. I listen to the music that he used to play. I'm more like my father every year, every year. I teach myself the music that he used to hear. I try to call my brother on the phone, on the phone. It's hard to tell from pictures just how much he's grown. My brother likes to call me on the phone, on the phone. But sometimes I don't answer 'cause nobody's home. Is this just passing? Is it all a dream? I'll see you tomorrow, I swear. I don't care where it takes me, as long as it takes me to you. I'll be passing.